universe, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. I'm En Fuego here, welcoming you to my namesake program once again, Enfuegotainment. Stoked you're here, and not as stoked as I would like to be for this discussion, but hey, Comic Book Wednesdays normally entail a review of an actual physical comic book, but since it's the only one to have been released recently, and at least for the foreseeable future, it was on the premium home demand for a while, so spend $20 to see Vin Diesel's Bloodshot. No. And I wasn't going to go out to a drive-thru to see this either, but this was a film that was released shortly before everybody got quarantined and all of the craziness that has gone down, the stay-at-home orders, and just the world basically changing as we know it. But yeah, this was apparently a passion project for Mr. Vin Diesel, and he is known for those. The Riddick sequels have been passion projects of his. The Last Witch Hunter, passion project of his, and he funds those really more so than anything else with all of that Fast and the Furious money, Furioso and all that. I don't despise Vin Diesel, but I'm definitely not like the biggest fan. I mean, the XXX stuff, I mean, I was more entertained by the one with Ice Cube, honestly. Although, I do really like the first Pitch Black, you know, and that was before he had really hit it big, and I own that movie, that flick is the shit, but, you know, once again, he wasn't even really the main character per se, that was more of an ensemble, and, I mean, you know, he kind of comes to the forefront at the end of that film. But anyway, long story short, Bloodshot is the first of Sony's new aspirations to make a Valiant Comics universe, and Valiant Comics were another one of the small fries that basically jumped from the biggies and was started in 1989, if I recall correctly. Started by a guy who had done work for Marvel for a very long time. So he went and he started his own comic book company, and yet unfortunately, unlike Image that came a few years later, Valiant just never really hit with the mainstream audiences, man, and there's even been so many others that have come in the last decade or two. You know, you've got your IDWs, you've got Dynamite, you've got Boom Studios, so there are a lot of non-Marvel and DC comic companies, but I mean, a lot of the ones that I think have succeeded, they were less of the superhero-y variety, you know, and they delve more into just non-traditional comic book sort of stories, whether it's horror or, you know, mystery stories or, you know, just full-on fantasy, you know, whatever the hell they may be. But Valiant was trying to make their own superhero universe, and really the only Valiant character that I remember was X-O Man of War from the crossover with Predator that they did at one particular point. And so, in any event, Bloodshot the movie, let's talk about this film. And so, it's in a lot of ways your standard, slick, yet bland form of storytelling, especially for a PG-13 comic book film. I mean, Vin Diesel is not bad in it. You know, he is a soldier that dies in duty and is basically taken into this secret government-type program. And yeah, he's basically rebuilt, and he has all of these little, almost like nanotechnology pieces of tech that are put into his body, and they help him regenerate from any sort of injury. So, I mean, whether it's, you know, punching into a wall and messing up his hand, I mean, we're talking the bones, the tissue, it just repairs itself. And so, yeah, he is in turn, he's gonna be sent out on missions, but he impetuously wants to go after, first and foremost, and against Guy Pearce, who is the, you know, lead behind this, these particular super soldiers and stuff, because Vinny's not the only one. There's a number of others, including this girl who kind of becomes a new love interest. But yeah, his wife had been killed, and so Vin Diesel is adamant about trying to track down this person, played by Toby Kebbell, and yeah, just extract his revenge accordingly. All understandable, yet all kind of by-the-book stuff that we have seen before. And this is where I have to really, really dance around some things here, because of the fact that there is a twist that becomes apparent after about 30, 40-ish minutes maybe into the film. And yet this isn't like a super, super long film. It's not even 2 hours. It's like 100 minutes and some change. But nonetheless, yeah, this it delves into something, dare I say, kind of live, die, repeat-ish, Edge of Tomorrow, if you know that. And I know even mentioning that is kind of a spoiler to a degree, but there is a cyclical manner to what is going on with our Vin Diesel character. And as I said, I mean, he has some tender moments with his wife, and but that happens early on, obviously. And Kebbell, for the smaller role that he has, I have enjoyed him since that Black Mirror episode. He was not as bad as Dr. Doom in that Fantastic Four Josh Trank bit. I mean, the problem with that was not the casting, the problem was the script and studio meddling for Fox and all that other stuff. That's a discussion for a different day, obviously. But and Pierce is solid in it as well. There's really not an immense amount of bad acting in this. We do have like the Indian programmer stereotype that is kind of played up a little much for me. That character is a little bit wormy, although he has some amusing jokes about like, what, 6 inches and so on. I don't really want to get too into it, but I mean, it's not a badly acted film. I like the black British techie guy, though, that is in this. He's actually very fun in the stuff that he does, and his interplay with how stoic and serious Vin Diesel is, and he's more of like this, playful kind of benefactor. I mean, their dynamic is good, and I actually really enjoyed those scenes a lot. And yeah, so it's not really like there's bad acting aside from the jealous meathead guys who are also in the Super Soldier program that don't like Vin Diesel. One in particular who really just takes a loathing to him. So that guy's kind of a schmuckhead. But, aside from that, it's not a poorly acted movie. It's just the tropiness of the script, and it's directed very much in a Michael Bay sort of way. I mean, dare I say, some of the problems that I had recently with a rewatch of Birds of Prey, I kind of have those same issues with this, where it's like, it's too slick, and it doesn't really have much grit to it, despite the, I don't know. I have friends that are really into the Bloodshot character and into those comics, and I have, certain real deep dive nerd buddies of mine that, I've slowly, as the years have gone on, become more of a casual comic book reader. In the 90s, I was very much about, just Batman and the, Nightfall, Night Quest, Night's End, and Death of Superman, and collected the first 100 issues of Spawn, and, big into, Age of Apocalypse X-Men, and, the Maximum Clonage. I mean, I was very much an early, mid to late 90s, comic book person, but with, like, the big, more well-known names, and, of course, I've read The Walking Dead, and I've read my fair share of horror comics, especially, adapted stuff, like, the Army of Darkness stuff, whatever, so, but I'm not, like, a super deep dive and going and exploring a lot of the smaller publications and stuff, and so, I mean, really, just like a lot of my issues with most of the Image stuff, aside from Spawn, really, like a lot of the Liefeld stuff, like Youngbloods and whatnot, the stuff that feels very much like it was just a copycat version of other characters I'd seen in the big two, in Marvel and in DC, I was just always kind of off-put unless the writing really went super, super darker, and maybe Bloodshot did. I've never read a Bloodshot comic, so if you're here watching this review and you're like, dude, you need to really check out the stuff proper, if that is the case, I mean, recommend to me a particular storyline, a particular, trade paperback or something that is a good introduction to the character, and I will definitely seek it out, give it a chance, see if it's on Comixology, see if I can, once stores start to reopen properly, check it down, track it down in the comic store or whatever. But, nonetheless, I was not particularly impressed with this, although I will say, it wasn't like as craptastic as it could have been. It was serviceable enough. It wasn't absolute garbage or anything like that, but I just don't necessarily see them making a Valiant universe. Like, which other characters, from that imprint will they try to develop? Because, Sony apparently had a few, that were in that pre-production, just trying to get some scripts together, and they want to have a shared universe. As if we need another shared universe of characters. But sometimes shared universes of characters that I'm unfamiliar with, like look at what happened with Guardians and Ant-Man. I was much less familiar with them than I was, like, obviously a Iron Man or a Thor or, Cap or anything like that, Spider-Man, obviously. So, yeah, man, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a 2 out of 5, regrettably. It's a Malo film for me. It's not 1 star. It's probably more like 2.5 Fuego Fireballs, if I'm going to be completely honest, but I don't do half scores, everybody. It's got to be either a 2 or a 3. And this is not a bueno film. It's not a good film. So I definitely have to veer with the lower score. I have to go to, it's malo, unfortunately. But it has its redeeming qualities from the fact that it is well shot. The acting is solid enough, but it's really just a by-the-books, boring and uncompelling story that really derails this from being anything massively memorable, and it's for that reason quickly forgettable. So I've been Jaime En Fuego. Y'all can find more on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube, where I cover everything on my personal channel, from comic book stuff to comedies, action movies, art house stuff like dramas and thrillers and things of that nature. And I do a animated Monday or a music on Monday. I kind of flip those back and forth, so every Monday you get either a music themed review of some sort, like a movie or something, or you get a more adult variety animated film. Wednesdays are comic book coverage. Thursdays are a retro Fuego review, that throwback where I revisit a film that I've never seen before, and then on the weekends I do a Star Wars show. Every other day in between, it's usually a FRESCA review of some sort, something that has just recently arrived. But if you like more spooktacular shizzle, gotta go over to youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. That's where myself, along with my co-producer and the creator and showrunner over there, Cecil Laird, we join with Susie Von Slotta, Marsha Parker, and Robert Duell, and we do trailer reactions, we do reviews of films, television series, books, comics. I do a weekend show called Hail Stephen King on Saturdays, which is a lot of fun. We also do unboxings, let's plays, as comprehensive of the spooktacular as possible. So jump over there, and over here, Portafa, like, share, subscribe. I'm around just a little over 10 subscribers from crossing the 1,000 threshold and getting so many more creator opportunities here on the YouTubies. So until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, cinemigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. But I'm hopeful that that's right, you and me, get to share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, stay home, stay safe, and watch more movies. I don't know, watch Pitch Black. It's way better.